The Black Death.
What's so special about it?
Well, it was very deadly and killed millions of people.
What is it?
Let me tell you how it started, and why you are a skeleton. You died from the Black Plague.
Okay.
Let's go back to the 1300s. The plague was caused by bacteria and fleas. The fleas got around places by being on rats. It began in China in the 1330s, then affected Central Asia, then spread to Europe. In China, 40 to 6 million people died.
How'd the plague get to so many places? It's not like they can just walk there.
People went places to trade using ships and caravans, and what they brought with the people is the rats and the fleas, therefore bringing the plague. One place where the trade was used was the Silk Roads, linking all of the places. This is also how the plague spread to India and Muslim territories. Now it's 1346 and the plague is in the city Kaffa. Then there was an Italian ship that traveled to Sicily to trade, and when they got there most of the people were dead.
How did they die so fast?
The plague can have someone killed in 24 hours.
So how about the people who didn't die?
The people took them in, but they died in no time.
Wow!
You might have been one of those people who died. First you got the plague from a flea, then you went on that ship.
What are those bumps on me?
Those are buboes. This is the first type of plague. It's also the plague that killed you. It's an infection that kills cells and the nervous system, and you lose your ability to do anything. The plague goes into your lymph glands. You are one of the 60% of the people who got it. They called it the Black Death because of the black bumps. When you died, your family lost you. In the Black Plague, lots of people died and lots of people lost their families. It even left some kids with no parents.
So there were other forms of the plague?
Yes. Let me tell you about the pneumonic plague. The germs from the plague go directly to the white blood cells and to the lungs instead of the lymph glands, making anyone who got it cough the plague and transfer it to other people. With this plague, if you took out all the rats and fleas, the plague would still live.
That sounds horrible.
It really was, but there was another kind.
Really?
It's not likely that you'll get this one than the other kinds. This one is fatal, no chance of surviving. The only sign you'll know a person has it is a rash that forms in one day. They died that day. But now, let's go to the end of the 1340s. It spread to France, Germany, and England. Now it's 1351 and the plague has reached Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, and Russia. From 1347 to 1351, about 19 to 38 million people died, nearly half of Europe.
What would they do with all these dead bodies? I can't imagine digging up that many graves.
They put the dead bodies they get every day in a cart. The cart was pushed down the streets and people asked if they have any dead bodies and would put them in the cart. The Mongols used the bodies to their advantage in warfare by hurling the bodies to their enemies. Their enemies then were affected with the plague and died.
So what happened to Europe with all these people dying? Would there be a shortage of people for jobs?
It affected the economy the most. The people who traded died and then there was less trade. There was more wages in Europe because they needed to pay for more workers. But less people meant less food, so food wouldn't cost as much. The landlords had to pay the few workers they had more. Peasants started to use money to pay rent instead of working. At the end, the Black Death weakened feudalism. The plague also affected the Jews. People started to believe God was punishing them for their sins, and some blamed the Jews. So the Germans expelled the Jews from their cities. They treated the Jews badly. The most welcoming place for Jews was Poland, so most of them went there.
How did people try to not get the plague?
Well, they tried to wear masks that looked like this. And inside the mask they would put herbs because some people thought the air was infected. Some prayed and tried to forgive their sins because they thought God was punishing them.
Did any of those work?
Kind of, because the plague mostly spreads from fleas. The pneumonic plague can be transmitted from person to person when the person with the plague coughs it. So, what happened before the Black Plague? You were alive then. How was Europe going? Was it flourishing greatly?
Oh, right, my past life. We enjoyed the 1200s, but then early 1300s there were very cold winters and rainy summers. Our food supply died and livestock died from diseases.
That's horrible. So how did the people eat?
Some people didn't and made northern Europe in a great famine. It lasted from 1315 to 1322. People died from starvation and diseases. The people who did survive were not gaining enough nutrients to survive, so the survivors were less able to resist new infections and diseases.
So Europe went through a lot of hardships.
Yeah. Thank you for telling me about my life and what was happening in Europe. It must have been really hard for people living at that time, though, and watching people dying left and right.